Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Horror of Hurst Castle. Ollie Arnold had always been fascinated by history, its secrets, its tragedies, and the way its echoes lingered in forgotten corners of the world. On a crisp autumn morning, she decided to visit Hurst Castle, a stone sentinel perched on the Solent's edge. The castle, originally built by Henry Romanate to defend against invaders, was rumoured to house a dark past within its shadowy dungeons. Intrigued by the whispers of ghostly encounters, Holly booked a tour, unaware that she was about to step into the heart of a chilling tale. The ferry ride from the Isle of Wight to the mainland was smooth, the water shimmering under a pale sun. Holly's enthusiasm grew as the castle came into view, its rugged walls steeped in centuries of history. A small group of tourists gathered for the guided tour, their chatter blending with the squawking of gulls. But Holly felt an inexplicable pull toward the dungeons, a part of the castle often glossed over in official tours. When the guide's voice echoed through the courtyard, describing the castle's strategic importance, Holly lingered near a weathered wooden door marked with a faded sign, "Dungeon access restricted." Something about the door beckoned her. During a brief moment of distraction, she slipped away from the group and pushed it open, her flashlight illuminating a steep stone staircase spiraling into darkness. The air grew colder with each step. The smell of damp earth and decay curled around her, and her footsteps echoed ominously. At the bottom, she found herself in a narrow corridor lined with rusted iron bars. Cells yawned open, their interiors cloaked in shadows. Holly's heart raced as she peered into one of the cells. The faint outline of shackles on the walls hinted at the grim fates of those imprisoned here. As she moved deeper into the dungeon, Holly's flashlight flickered. She smacked it against her palm, muttering in frustration. The light steadied but cast unsettling, jittery shadows on the stone walls. A sudden chill ran down her spine, and she felt a prickling sensation, as though unseen eyes were watching her. You shouldn't be here," a voice whispered. Holly spun around, her flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. No one was there. Her breath quickened, and she stumbled backward, nearly tripping over an uneven stone. "Hello," she called. Silence. But then, faintly, came the sound of chains rattling. The rational part of her mind insisted it was the wind, or perhaps an old mechanism stirred by her presence. But the sound grew louder, closer, until it seemed to echo in her very bones. Holly's flashlight flickered again, and in its intermittent glow she saw them, pale, translucent figures materializing in the corridor. Their eyes were hollow, their expressions twisted in agony. One figure stepped forward, a gaunt man with tattered clothing and raw, bloodied wrists. "They left us to rot. Our screams were swallowed by these walls, our souls trapped in darkness, and now—" Holly's throat tightened. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'll leave now," she stammered. "It's too late," the man replied. The other spirits began to advance, their chains dragging behind them. Holly backed away, her flashlight tumbling from her hands and plunging her into near total darkness. She felt her way along the wall, her fingers brushing against cold, damp stone, desperately searching for the staircase. The spirits closed in, their whispers forming a cacophony of despair. Snatches of their stories reached her ears. Betrayed by my brother, they're falsely accused, starved in the winter's chill, at each tale wove a tapestry of suffering, and Holly felt their anger seep into her skin like ice. Finally, her fingers found the edge of the staircase. She scrambled upward, her heart pounding like a war drum. The spirits' wails followed her, growing louder as if the dungeon itself were alive, determined to keep her within its clutches. She burst through the door at the top, slamming it shut behind her. The sunlight in the courtyard felt unreal, its warmth a distant memory. The tour group was nowhere to be seen, and the castle grounds were eerily silent. Holly's gaze darted around, her mind racing. Had she imagined it all? Her trembling hands and racing heart suggested otherwise. She hurried toward the ferry dock, desperate to leave the castle and its horrors behind. As the ferry pulled away, Holly dared to glance back at Hurst Castle. Its silhouette against the horizon seemed darker, more menacing. In one of the upper windows, she thought she saw the gaunt man watching her, his hollow eyes burning with a warning. Back on the Isle of Wight, Holly vowed never to return. But the spirits of Hurst Castle had marked her. At night, she dreamed of chains rattling and voices whispering her name. And in the quiet moments, when the world was still, she swore she could feel cold fingers brushing against her skin, as if the dungeon's horrors had followed her home. The days passed uneventfully, but Holly's nights grew increasingly tormenting. Each time she closed her eyes, the same nightmare unfolded. She was back in the dungeon, surrounded by the wailing spirits. Their gaunt faces loomed closer, and their whispers became clearer. "Help us." One evening, driven by a mix of fear and guilt, Holly sought answers. She visited the Isle of Wight's historical archives, poring over records of Hurst Castle's grim history. She learned of prisoners who had been falsely accused, rebels left to die in darkness, and traitors whose bodies were never claimed. One story stood out, a man named Elias Gresham, accused of espionage during the English Civil War. His ghostly visage matched the gaunt man she had seen in the dungeon. According to the records, Elias had been executed in secret, his final words a curse upon the castle and all who abandoned justice. Holly felt a pang of sorrow. The spirits weren't merely haunting the castle, they were trapped, bound by injustice and pain. Determined to find peace for them, Holly prepared to return to Hurst Castle. Armed with a lantern, salt, and a bundle of sage she had read might help cleanse spiritual energies, she boarded the ferry once more. The journey felt heavier this time, the air oppressive as the castle loomed closer. The grounds were deserted when she arrived. The castle's silence seemed to stretch into eternity. Holly retraced her steps to the dungeon door, her heart pounding. With trembling hands, she opened it and descended once more. The spirits greeted her immediately, their forms more defined, their voices clear. "You came back," Elias said. His tone held surprise but also suspicion. Holly raised the lantern. "I want to help you." Elias's expression softened, but the chains around him rattled as if alive. "It is not so simple. Our torment binds us. Justice must be restored." Holly nodded. The spirits guided her to a hidden alcove in the dungeon, where loose stones concealed a small chest. Inside were weathered parchments, documents proving the innocence of several prisoners, including Elias. Holly's hand shook as she read their contents. These must see the light of day. Holly promised to deliver the documents to the authorities and began her ascent. As she emerged into the night, she felt the weight of countless eyes watching her. But for the first time, the air in the dungeon seemed lighter, as though hope had seeped into its walls. The next morning, Holly presented the documents to a local historian who was stunned by the revelations. News of the discovery spread, and the forgotten prisoners of Hurst. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.